I teach screenagers. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that quite a few of you teach screenagers too. And there might even be a little screenager in you. Think about it. Today, people spend on average 6.5 hours a day looking at a screen, whether it's work-related applications, email, social media, text messaging, television, or of course my personal favorite, online shopping. We're inundated with screens, and our kids are spending an average of 11 hours a week playing video games. Technology has changed our world. It's changed the way we act, the way we communicate, the way we think, and it's changed the way our kids learn. Kids no longer need to serve as memory banks. In fact, if anything, they're more like data processors, processing all of the information that's literally at their fingertips. And it's amazing sometimes to watch as their brains oscillate back and forth between the screens. I'm sure some of you can appreciate this scene where you walk into your classroom, and of course the kid has their earbuds in their ear and their phone in their hand, and they're sending a text message, and you ask them, hold on, Miss Ligh, with you just a minute, hold on. And they're text messaging, and oh, wait a minute, I gotta go back, I gotta send this. Oh, and then there's something that goes through on Snapchat. Oh, did you see this? And then they go back, oh, I gotta change that. Wait, hold on, Miss Ligh. And you just wanna yell, put the phone down. But the phone has become an integral part of these kids' lives. And it's probably become an integral part of our lives as well. I can't help but think of Charles Darwin and his theory on evolution. He asserted that the human species evolves to adapt to its environment. And if you think about it, that's exactly what these kids are doing. But I'm not so sure that we're doing the same in education. Now, I've had many conversations with educators. Some believe that technology can serve as a crutch or hinder learning. In fact, recently a teacher said to me, technology is turning our kids into idiots. And I ever so politely responded with a question. Is it technology, or is it our inability to maximize it in the classroom that's causing this? Now, there are some that also assert that one day kids won't have technology, the internet will be gone, and then what are they going to do? But again, I can't help but ask, at what point in history have we ever regressed with advancements? I mean, we didn't create the automobile and then revert to a cart and horse. We made better automobiles. And today, there are cars that drive themselves, and even cars that fly. Yes, if we continue with antiquated philosophies and practices in our classrooms, clearly our kids will be at a disadvantage. We need to embrace technology and what this looks like for our kids in the future. Now, there are many reasons that I'm an advocate for technology. I spent the first 25 years of my career in corporate America, and I was able to see how technology was able to change the way that we did things. We were able to be more productive, more efficient. It helped us with our communication. And I would argue that it could do the same with our students in the classroom. Let me give you an example. Last year, I had a young lady in my classroom who had a pretty tough situation at home. Her mother was a drug addict. Her father was never around. She was working 40 hours a week just to have money to live off of. And sometimes she didn't even have a place to stay. So needless to say, she didn't come to class very often. But early in the semester, she and I started communicating through email, text messaging. I would post certain assignments online. She would upload her assignments. Sometimes I even tutored online. She would ask me questions and email me and text message me, and sometimes she would email me just to vent. And the words on the page brought tears to my eyes, and I would respond back with words of wisdom or support or trying to help her in any way I could, just as I would for that student sitting beside me in the classroom. She and I developed this incredible bond, like many of my other students. And at the end of the year, she not only passed my class, but she showed growth on her final assessment. And this year, she's going to graduate. And she has dreams of starting her own business. Now, she could not have done what she did had it not been for technology. And I certainly could not have done what I did if it had not been for technology. Now, I would also argue that technology can help us to be more efficient and more productive. And if you're like me, there are times where we are put in situations where we have 40+ students in our classroom and over 200 students that we need to teach in a given year. And that can be quite daunting. But I would argue that technology gives us an edge. We can extend learning beyond the classroom, and we can get more done in a given day. Let me give you an example. At the end of a day, in a 30-minute period, I can send an email to 100 students. I can send another email to 100 parents. I can post an assignment on Google Classroom. I can create a quick 3-minute video reviewing some key concepts and post it online. I can text all of my kids and remind them of an assignment that's coming due tomorrow. And I can text 4 other students that didn't come into class that day and make sure they're doing okay. And I can still have time for a few minutes of online shopping. Now, teachers 20 years ago would have not have had that ability, but we do. Now, granted, this is just the tip of the iceberg. When it comes down to it, our job is to educate, to teach. And many teachers are a little reluctant because they don't want students looking up answers online. So I'm going to share another story with you. Every year I do a problem-solving project with my students. And so I start out by asking the kids, what do you do when you have a problem? There's a little buzz in the air. A couple of students answer. Never fails. At least one student responds with, I Google it. Now, the first time I heard that, I wanted to scream. But being the educator that I am, I reflected. And I thought of a time that my daughter came home and needed help with the trigonometric ratio. Now, of course, the first thing that I did was remind my daughter that I was an English teacher and that trigonometry and English work on 2 polar opposites. Trigonometry likes to make a lot out of very little information, and English teachers, we like a lot of information. But when I was done with my ranting and raving, I then Googled it. But in doing so, it didn't stop there. I was reading it, she was reading it, we were talking about it, we were practicing it, we were applying it, and guess what? She was learning, and so was I. So something as simple as Google can add value. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll be the first to say there's a lot of erroneous information out there, right? But see, this is why our job as educators has got to change. Because literacy is no longer about simply determining the main idea in a piece of text. Literacy now has evolved. Kids need so much more. They need financial literacy, cultural literacy, global literacy. They need visual, media, digital literacy. They need to be able to recognize cyber scams and see fake news for what it is. But how can they be equipped to do that if we are not integrating technology into everything that we do? And there's so many ways in which we can do this. For instance, each year, my students are responsible for creating a website. They have to manage this website throughout the entire year. They upload assignments, they have to use hyperlinks, videos, they have to blog, they have to keep it current. And we're able to integrate this into almost everything that we do. And what's great is they get to be able to be creative. And there's a little differentiation that's involved because they get to put a little bit of their own personality into it. Another example, this is an infographic that one of my students did. Why do a foldable or a graphic poster when they can now utilize technology to demonstrate what they've learned? Another great tool that I love is Go Animate. We all love cartoons, right? I still love watching cartoons. Kids love to create them. And I would argue that you can utilize Go Animate in almost any subject. For instance, a math teacher could use Go Animate and have kids create a video that demonstrates math in everyday terms and show how it applies to everyday life. A student could demonstrate the Civil War or World War II. Foreign language could utilize it to demonstrate mastery of the language. And of course, as an English teacher, we can use it to analyze a novel. There are so many tools out there. And some of the very basic ones, for instance, Padlet, Poll Everywhere, Socrative. And these tools can help us to be able to utilize and get feedback instantaneously. For instance, you could ask the student a question and they can simply respond with their cell phone and text the response or their Chromebook. And if little John is sitting back in the back and he's not responded for a few minutes because he's probably on his cell phone looking at a video, you can walk up to little John and give him a little nudge. Or if he gives you an answer that's off in left field, you can immediately give him feedback, which in my book is the best kind of feedback. And I don't really quite understand why we as educators would not utilize data when technology affords us the ability to have data at the push of a button. Long gone are the days of uploading spreadsheets when almost every application out there provides us that ability. Now, I could spend a lot of time talking to you about numerous programs, but unfortunately, time does not allow. But I would be remiss if I did not at least mention the value of gaming. How many of you have had a student walk into your classroom on their cell phone playing pool? That's the new trend, right? As an once avid pool player, I don't quite get it, but that shows how dated I am. But here's the thing, kids love video games. And research shows that kids who play video games have higher math and science scores because they utilize problem-solving skills. So why would we not incorporate gaming into everything we do? And if you really want to add a little rigor, have the kids create the game. Then you're really reaching all levels of blooms. There's so many things that we can do with technology. The one thing I would forewarn any teacher of is to be cautious of doing something just to check off a box and say, I'm integrating technology. Like anything, it needs to be well planned and provide purpose, or the kids will see it as irrelevant or just another task. I would start small, but the one thing that I would challenge each of you to do tonight as you leave here is to make sure that you have a vision of what the future holds for education. You know, research shows that 20 years from now, 30 to 50% of the current jobs will no longer exist. We as educators cannot prepare our kids for jobs that will not be there. We have a responsibility to them to prepare them for the future. And that future includes technology. We need to have a vision. One of my visions, I believe that in the very near future, that coding will be a part of Common Core. And let's face it, if a kid can code, they can do just about anything, right? basic skills like coding, programming, web design are going to be important. And when we see these things with virtual reality and augmented realities, they're going to impact the kids and they're going to impact education. When you think about smart content is content that is created by artificial intelligence. And instead of us searching for information, it searches and brings it to us. And based on the pop-ups I receive when I go online for shoe sales, I would say retailers are doing a pretty good job of that already. But we have got to evolve. I do believe that education is going to change. I believe that high quality online education is going to continue to blossom. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not believe that technology is going to take the place of teachers. But I do believe that teachers who use technology are going to replace those who don't. But at the end of the day, teaching is still an art. But our canvas has changed. And we need to understand that canvas. John Chapman said, "Teaching is a peculiar art. It requires more than just benevolence or learning. It requires a craving on the part of the teacher." And I would argue that we, as educators, need to crave a better understanding of that screenager sitting in our classroom. If we want to make sure that they walk across that stage and receive a diploma that serves them well, so that they are truly prepared for the future. So yes, I proudly state that I teach screenagers. The question that I leave you to ponder is, do you? Thank you.